In trucking, every minute counts. That's why QuickQ delivers smart, secure payment solutions designed to keep your fleet moving. From our innovative SmartQ RFID system that stops fraud at the pump, to our factoring company fuel card programs that help fleets get fast, reliable access to funds and fuel discounts, QuickQ simplifies your payments and keeps your cash flowing. And it all comes backed by customer service that's second to none. Make it simple, make it secure, make it QuickQ. Visit quickq.com to learn more.
Welcome to Loaded and Rolling. I'm Thomas Wasson, and today we are talking about technology, more specifically catching up on the market, and we're talking a little bit about things like AI, the state of the market, fraud prevention. There's a lot of stuff going on, and wanted to bring on the folks at Qud. That's Qued, and they're really, really awesome people. Always fun to get to catch up with them. If you don't know who Qud is, they're a load appointment, they're a scheduling platform, and so they're helping folks tackle one of the most difficult problems, which is trying to get the right spot. If anyone's ever been in logistics in the supply chain, sometimes it can be a little bit difficult, and technology is coming in to fill the gap. So without further ado, let's welcome on their CEO, Prasad Gollapalli. And Prasad, always a pleasure again to talk to you. You've had quite a bit of experience in the industry, but for folks who are just watching this and catching up what Qud is doing, first, tell us a little bit about yourself.
First and foremost, thank you, Thomas, and FreightWaves TV for this opportunity for me to come on your show, but more importantly, for Qud to be here, right? Always a pleasure to be chatting with you. For those who don't know me, my name is Prasad Gollapalli. I'm the CEO of Qud. And prior to Qud, I've started another company called Trucker Tolls, and successfully exited that back in 2021. And prior to that was Get Loaded. So I've been in this industry for many years.
And being in the tech game for so long, there's been a lot of changes and stuff. And so, one of the big ones has been this push towards technology. And if there's any kind of backstory, because it does feel like when I started back in even 14, there was technology, but it was also it took a lot of work. Things had always been done the same way for 20 years, it felt like. Tell us a little bit before we dive into the current tech and the state of the markets. Has there been any of the bigger changes you've seen throughout your career and your experience leading up to, now being in charge of Qud?
Before I started Qud, right, if you go back in my journey, every venture that I have been has been a startup, whether I started it or I've joined a startup, right? So going all the way back to early 2000s, if you look at technology in our space supply chain management as a whole, technology always played an invisible hand, not necessarily worried about having to adapt to the latest and greatest technology, but also we as an industry get a lot of negative press for thinking that we are technically behind many other industries. True and false, in my viewpoint. That's primarily because there are still certain things. I mean, there are still companies here that use mainframes, right? Even today. But for us, technology is a tool, not the means to an end. Completely, right? We don't build tech companies just based on a technology because that's new technology, flashy technology. Hey, we like it. Because our primary focus in our industry is going from point A to point B, moving that load, right? That is our primary focus. If technology can help us move that more efficiently, then we adapt to it. Not necessarily because that's a flashy technology. That has been the case. And the second, to go back to your question on what has happened in these years. We have adapted to technology, not at a pace that other industries have done in the past. But coming to AI, I feel like we are adapting to that new technology much faster than other compared to ourselves in the past.
It does feel like, especially look at that, even in the brokerage space, the technology space, the supply chain, it's almost like this Darwinian thing where you almost have to quickly adopt this technology. I remember it was like 2022 or 2023. There were conversations of, we're doing all this new tech. Now we got to make it work. Now it's got to pay for itself. And it seems very rare. Like you talk to like Google, the big tech companies, Apple, they'll put in billions of R&D. It may not work out. It may work out. But it feels like specifically in this industry, there's almost this expectation of, if I'm going to put money in it, I'm going to find a way to, I'm going to wring that thing out if I have to. So diving into that too, looking at that tech space, how's it looking in the state of the overall brokerage market as well? A lot of large truckload carriers are using freight brokerages. Given softness in the market, you really need to have access to people like brokerages. I know I had to work with a lot back in my day. Tell us a little bit about, especially having this inside access of Q'd and being able to talk to so many different players. Kind of what's the current situation like right now?
So I think your analogy of um, people are trying to use the technology to see how they can get a leg up. That is the common theme around, right? 10, 15 years back, if we were to put a new technology out there, new solution, people would say, let's wait until everybody adopted to it. Now they're not waiting. They want to use the latest and the best, but with the idea that you were absolutely right in your comparison with Google, right? Um, Google and other, I'm just using them as an example, right? The tech companies out there, they can have a failed project, a huge, multi-billion-dollar failed project. But our industry or logistics players are so good, they don't want a failed technology project. So their approach is, if this technology is promising, how do we take advantage of that? Maybe in layers, but not thinking like, okay, let's try this project for the next 5 years. It doesn't work. We'll shove it and we'll go to the next project, call it off. Was not the mindset that we have today, which is always a good thing. That means, we're not looking for a perfect solution. Our customers, especially logistics companies, they're looking for layers of solving the problem. And the reason I use the word layers is, say, for example, if you take Qt, right? Today we walk into a 3 p.m. We look at their volume. We know we are 100% we can fully automate their scheduling. Not just automation, right? Our AI engine can get them prime slots for every appointment that they have. And when we implement that, execute that, it's usually, let's see where is the biggest bang for the buck, where are the biggest bridges for you, right? Here are the 10, 20 bridges, let's automate them fast. And then we go into the long tail. So they could have 200 bridges, 300 bridges, it doesn't matter to us, right? So we're automating everything, but we're doing it in a structured approach where our customers are seeing success at every level. They don't have to wait for 5 years or 3 years to see the complete value of it.
That's one of the things was interesting. I remember when I worked at a brokerage, I was at Arrive, and it was, you when you deploy things, you're deploying it oftentimes in you have a testing environment, but that thing goes live pretty quick. You want to try to get an API, you want to try to get EDI. I'm using a brand new browser. Like, it didn't seem like we've tested this for 3 or 4 years. We feel confident. We've polished it up. It's more of like minimum viable product, send it, and I need that advantage. Does that kind of provide an advantage and an opportunity, especially how Qt works in this appointment scheduling, where your customers are more, I would say, not risk takers, but they're more prone to like, hey, I can see the savings now. I care more about the savings. Let's get this thing going. And then as we are working on it, I don't really have to wait and see if somebody says this at a conference, it's totally okay, or that consensus driven. It's more like the opposite, like tip of the spear.
You said it very well. And I mean, interestingly, you came from Arrive, and they're one of our customers. So, you explained the process very well, right? It's exactly true. And it is, you also touched on another thing as you introduced Qt. the appointment scheduling on the surface doesn't look very sexy. I mean, people don't throw up their arms in the air and, hey, let's solve this problem, is not the case. But this is one of the most difficult ones, like you said. It hasn't been touched in the last 40, 50 years, forever. Right? No one has touched this problem until Qt has put the spotlight on it. Until that point, it has always been on the back end. People have tinkered around with it, either through outsourcing, finding cheaper labor, or using in-house technology. Most of them have been difficult projects because, let's say this, right? Logistics companies are not software companies. Again, right? Their focus is moving goods from point A to point B and not get bogged down by, you know, this project versus that project, right? That's not their forte. Now, so as soon as we look at this problem, people's reception was extremely high. Like when we spoke to customers, not a single customer said, "Oh, this is not a problem for us," first of all. The second thing is, they were also suspicious in the earlier days because, if they have tried this solution in house, they would have said, "Hey, we tried this." They were very honest. They were like, "Hey, we tried to solve this, tinker with it. We failed on these grounds, or it was too much for us to digest. We couldn't really see the end of it. We like you to see, solve this problem for us." To me, these are all good signs, right? I mean, we found, we're an industry where, if I try to solve a problem and it's becoming too much, saying that no one can ever solve this problem is just too much, right? We're not like that. 3PLs and carriers that we spoke to, all of them are top 100 3PLs and carriers that we have today. Very large organizations with, really smart people. They all have one thing in common, that is their eagerness to see this solved. That is, amazing.
And that's a competitive advantage. I mean, I think it's very much the incentives are, it's not, oh, well, we haven't done it, I can't do this. It feels like the incentive is, if I'm the one who does it, I can make a lot of money off of this. There's gold for me. And I'm thinking about, looking at the AI space. That was one of the things. I was at Manifest in February, logistics, technology, and it was all about AI agents, AI virtual agents. We're going to throw AI. But when we're trying to solve some of these problems and you're thinking of appointment scheduling, how does AI kind of play into that? Because I can see this as two ways, and I want to get your thought. Thought one is AI is really good for machine learning and it can digest through all of this scheduling data and it can find me the data and provide the recommendations. Or is it the super sexy AI agent that then acts on my behalf and it schedules for me? And then the AI agent works with my other AI agent. And we got like the matrix now of AI agents, and I don't have to send an email. What are you kind of seeing in this space right now in terms of AI? Because it does feel like it's a big old pie, and I got a tiny fork.
I like that analogy. It's a big, big ass pie and, a tiny fork. Uh, Before I answer your question, I like to take a step and put agentic model and AI in general, right? The true age AI machine learning platforms in comparison, right? So, if you look at agentic models run very well at mundane tasks, more like a sidekick, not like, so you want the agent to do, hey, go and do X, call this driver and find out where the truck is. The agent comes back and says, he has a flat tire. Okay, so then we need to know how long it's going to take to fix it, or can he find a replacement truck? Yeah, go and ask him again. Or, you see the conversations. Do I need a separate another truck to take over that load, or can I wait? Right? See, these decision makings are not completely embedded into the agentic model yet. Right? Agentic models are good at mimicking human voice or human text. Right? That's the reason why these two apparently become the choices. Right? Whether they communicate through emails or messages, Slack messages, and all of that. Right? Or through voice. Where they lack is the decision making, right? On the other hand, when you look at AI machine learning platforms, they're really good at making the decision from from start to end, really own it all, right? So where we fall as a Qt is on the later part. So when Qt works, so we have our web portal and we show that in our demos. And oftentimes our team specifically says that this is a portal you never have to see ever in your life, because it's all plugged back into the TMS. So on one hand, we have the broker 3PL uh, um, or carriers TMS. The other hand, we have the appointment scheduling platforms, whether they're structured platforms, APIs, email or voice, doesn't matter, right? These are connected bridges. So once we see a load is ready to be scheduled, our system automatically picks that load from this TMS, schedules the appointment, the prime appointment, right? Because the algorithms can figure out what is prime appointment for you, Thomas, and what is prime appointment for me, Prasad, right? For a particular lane, for a particular shipper. Everything is customized, right? And makes that prime appointment, comes back with a confirmation number, puts it back into the TMS. All of it happens like that, right? In a completely seamless fashion. Now, in this case, the agentic model has no reason to be playing with it. Other than we're working with some of these partners today that we're trying to see if they're using agentic model. How do we work with them, right? On certain levels to even eliminate human interactions if there are some human interactions in there, right? But long and for most part, our platform doesn't need any agentic models in it, right? Other than the email and voice part, right? So
I've got a food related analogy. I want to make sure I'm understanding it right because this is answering one of my big questions about agents. So, the agents themselves, if I had a restaurant and that's my supply chain, the agents are like a sous chef. Think of it a French brigade.
mhm.
All you do is you cook meat, or you cook the veg, or you chop, or you prep. But you're not really good at figuring out what I need to make for my menu and how many tables I need and how do I serve the tables in the right order. So the machine learning is then kind of like the executive chef saying, hey, I need you to make these meals, and then I'm going to make sure that they go to each specific table. And in the instance of scheduling appointments, well, then the agent can say there's a delay, need ETA, but it's solving a math problem, which is how do I fill out this warehouse and how do I fill these docks? So instead of tables, I'm serving docks and serving truckloads. So I wonder if that's one of the big challenges a lot of people in the broader supply chain are having a struggle with in this new technology is that it does seem that I got confused. I was like, well, what about this agent versus machine learning versus the other stuff? That's one of the big challenges, right? You got to explain to folks.
Your analogy is perfect, on the dot, the way you explained it. And the question you raised is also absolutely true, because oftentimes we get asked, so are you an agentic model or a non-agentic model, machine learning AI, right? And oftentimes I told people, are we trying to put a square peg in a round hole here? Because the problem is what is more important, right? I mean, how do we solve it? For us, the machine learning algorithms are solving the problem. Then we don't have to introduce another layer of delay in communicating that message back to the customer, right? We don't need an agentic model to tell us, hey, let's start scheduling this load. We don't need that, because when the load is ready, scheduling it is extremely important. Sometimes waiting for 5 minutes, you might miss your prime slot already. We have seen a lot of those things. It's as soon as possible. You want to get those prime slots, and missing a prime slot, what you said earlier is absolutely true. This problem has such a big impact. When a customer misses a prime slot and settles for a not so good appointment or a bad appointment, the difference is really huge. They pay carrier a lot. There's a detention. There is a chance to miss their KPIs. And upstream, a bad appointment doesn't stay as a bad appointment. It bumps into another good appointment, causing dock scheduling issues, delays at the schedules, and OTIF penalties for the shippers. So if you think about it, all of it is just it's a plague at that point. It just keeps rolling into other parts. And most of the time, all these 40, 50 years that we've been in this, we've only addressed it by either is accepting that we have to pay more penalties. This is the cost of doing business. But until now, we haven't really addressed it. And we really put the spotlight on this problem. Our team has done a marvelous job of not just solving a problem, but understanding the impact of this problem. So our solution really takes care into upstream, downstream problems. How do we make ourselves a true exchange? Right. That is what we did.
It's kind of an advantage. I'm thinking because the scheduling or rescheduling is the two. It's kind of like the two big things you worry about. You can use the other folks as agents in their TMSs because it still has to solve the math problem, which is I need this appointment. If I have a large enough data set, I know that 400 miles, if I get it sent to pick up here, it needs to go from here. So it's almost like, when you're thinking, I guess folks are like, oh, I need an agent for everything. You don't necessarily have to have an agent where you're just solving a math problem and it's tripping folks up. Is that one of the things, I guess, as you all are getting more access, how's it is it moving towards like an airport model? Because I swear it feels like warehouses need to be like airports where if we got to switch terminals or I got a gate change, I need to be able to do that quickly. But it feels like in the logistics and supply chain, we're just wasting time because I never know that if one of my inbounds is delayed or not, or I never get the information and now I have to like juggle people who are waiting. Kind of tell us how that's going because it feels like there's just money on the table in terms of it helps out the warehouse, it helps out the carrier, it helps out the broker, but it just feels like a Gordian knot for some of these folks.
You're right. And so we have what you call appointment swappings. So our algorithms has the ability to see which load is coming, on time or early, which load is falling behind. Can we switch those two appointments, right? And interestingly, we've been working with shippers too now, and our idea of the switching the appointments was one of the biggest things that they accepted, and they're like, this is what we need. There's lack of communication on their end, right? So as we are solving this problem, we also felt like there's no resistance from people to solve, for this solution. That is the biggest thing. We have over 95% user adoption today. We've been around for a little over a year since we went live with our first customer, right? And we have, I don't want to give you the number on this, but we have the largest group of top 100 3PLs and top 100 carriers. And so far we haven't seen, we have seen user adoption over 95%, which is, in my viewpoint, I've seen a lot of startups, and I've been, in my journey, I've never seen a software adopt so well. So we're, definitely the solution is hitting the bullseye here.
And let's talk looking ahead while we got a little bit of time left here. Before we wrap up, looking at this year, a lot of big changes in the supply chain. We may have instances where people buy a whole bunch of stuff and they need help scheduling. What do you think? Do you think this is for the rest of this year, given tariffs and supply chain volatility, that this may be one of those moments where it's, oh, aha, I have now ordered too much. I need help scheduling my stuff.
You're right, absolutely. And the scheduling is such an important thing, Thomas. It doesn't happen. So we can't just sit here and fill our calendars for the rest of the year. Nobody does that. Rightfully so, because nobody wants to commit all their appointments without knowing what's the high value load that's coming through, right? So you get maybe a couple of weeks at a time, open windows. So in that, you get a small time period to really pick the prime slots. And once that's done, the next, it's a rolling window. So it keeps us on the toes. With a lot of priorities changing, and I said this on another panel recently, with a lot of human behavior changing, I mean, 5 years ago, people were going to stores more than buying it online. Now people are buying more online than going to stores, and hence, the supply chains themselves are changing. If you compare 10 years ago and now, the average length of a long haul has shrunk in the recent times. Rightfully, because we are building a lot more warehouses around hubs, right, around cities, and we're holding the goods there, right? And you can only hold so much goods there, which creates a lot of scheduling issues, right? And we're looking for ways to really eliminate all these losses. This has been one of the biggest pain points. Nobody likes to pay OTIF penalties, millions and millions of OTIF penalties. Nobody likes to pay, miss their KPIs. Nobody likes to pay detentions, right? All of this is kind of creating that snowball effect to really put focus on this problem. Right? And we're very, very fortunate and happy to be in this space, having focused ourselves on this. Our focus is to be the only and the exchange in scheduling in our space. So we really are, at a rapid pace, we're building hundreds of these connections out to every appointment scheduling platform, whether it's a small one, big one, doesn't matter to us. Today, we covered majority of the big ones, and we are focusing on even the smaller ones too. And the second part is the more content that comes into our algorithms, these algorithms are really improving themselves. They're just basically AI algorithms, right? So, what is a good appointment today is going to change a week from now because of the data that it sees, and it's improving on it every single day. So we're still in the first quarter of this game, in my viewpoint. All the nerves are settling in. We see a big thing. But the next 2 to 3 quarters, the way this space evolves is everything is going to be built on good appointments. How do you convey this? How do you change appointments? And when you change it, how do you notify the parties involved with it? And how do you take advantage of warehouse plannings with it? And so there is a lot of downstream or in future innovations that are tied to this problem right today. So what we're putting is the foundation for these future problems to be solved. So, it's almost like, day one in our life right now. So very excited.
Perfect. Well, I'm really excited. I mean, there's fertile ground. So in the coming years, I'm really excited. I really like, especially getting to catch up with all what you're working on. This is one of those things where when you find out how important it is, it's like, oh, well, this is probably one of the biggest friction points between all of these people, and so it's super important. We got to wrap it up, but if folks want to learn more and get in touch with Q, start using the software, check it all out, what's the best way to learn more information?
Our website, qed.com, very simple, QUED.com. And if they reach out through our website, there's contact@qed.com, email address, and one of our team members is more than happy to answer any questions. More importantly, guide them through how to adapt to a solution like this.
Perfect. Well, I really appreciate your time as well. We will catch up again soon for sure.
Thank you very much, Thomas.
That's going to be a wrap for this episode. But if you're just joining us, check us out, Apple, Spotify, and YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. We're on it. While you're at it, sign up for the Loaded and Rolling newsletter. It goes out every Thursday. That's freightwaves.com/loaded and rolling. That's going to be a wrap for this episode. But don't worry, folks. A lot more great stuff coming up. I'll see you again next week.